Good morning, everybody. I'm so happy to see so many of you here joining us this morning for our webinar, our July 24th monthly webinar with Trevor Blondeel as our distinguished guest. I appreciate, again, you all taking the time today because I was just telling Trevor, I don't even know what's happening. I'm usually an Eastern time zone person. Now I'm Pacific, and I'm just, totally messed up this week. But anywho, I digress. I appreciate you all being here. I'm gonna go ahead on and just get us kicked off so that we will afford Trevor the full time that he needs to share his message with you. Before we get started with Trevor, though, I'm gonna read you just a little bit about him to give you some background. Trevor is the founder of Manufacturing Greatness. He has about 25 years in the manufacturing plants industry, and he is the host of a very popular podcast. As a matter of fact, it's in the top 1.5% of podcasts globally. The name of it is Mindfulness Manufacturing, and you all can find that on your podcast platform. But again, it's in the top 1.5% of podcasts globally. So please do, if you get a chance, take a listen and support Trevor with his podcast. Trevor works as a speaker and advisor and a coach. And he likes to say that he connects the top to the shop. And I love that, Trevor. Thank you for that. In his spare time, he serves as the president for the Kentucky, Indiana National Speakers Association chapter. So please, you all, join me in welcoming a Canadian who sold his snowblower and snow tires and now loves living in Louisville, Kentucky. Thank you and welcome, Trevor.
All right. Thank you so much, Loranda. And yeah, just grateful for this community of human and organizational learning to give us the opportunity to spend some time here today together and have some fun. And we're gonna have some interaction. And yeah, I do love living in Louisville. And I miss sometimes being in Canada, but I'm going there this afternoon. So we're only like a 6 hour drive, which makes it fun. But I'm more curious about you all and this topic. I just want to kind of get to know you guys just a little bit better in the fact of like, how curious are you? And because this is what we're going to be talking today is the attitude of curiosity. And when we talk about curiosity, it's about the curiosity of others. So I just want to do a quick poll just to see, how curious are we on a scale from 1 to 7, 1 being, I just don't think about other people that much on how they're feeling or what's going on because I'm task focused and lots going on, or a 7 would be the high end. And that would be, hey, I'm like always thinking about other people and what they're thinking and is my is everything landing and how I'm talking and just what's going on with them. So just to get an idea of that, I'd love to see that. All right. So yeah, the reason I love to just kind of start with this is just kind of gets an idea of, hey, are we thinking about it much? Right? How often are we conscious of that whole curiosity? And as we go through this today, we'll have some fun with that. So what do we got here? Yeah, about oh, there's some 7s in there. Excellent. I can probably learn from you from a little bit today. I'm still learning. Some 6s and a lot of 5s. Okay, a couple 4s, and yeah, nobody around that 1 or 2. So that's fantastic. So we got a curious group. I guess that's why you're here today, right? Because you're curious, and this is a human and organizational learning. So this is awesome. So a little bit about me. So I talked about living in Louisville, but in 2019, my son was just starting college. So I'm driving back. I'm excited to see him. How is he doing on his own? So I get there. I open the door. Uh, after waiting for a while, because I knock on the door and it seems like forever, and I'm kind of waiting there. So when I actually hug him and I'm happy to see him, I am inundated with this smell. It's not the one you might be thinking of. it's like old socks and like a garbage dumpster. I just think to myself, like, come on, man. So at this point, all I'm wanting is a glass of water. So we make ourselves towards the kitchen. And I get to the kitchen and I spot a countertop camouflaged by dirty dishes. What can I not find? Yeah, a clean glass. I look at Dyson. I named him that before the vacuum cleaner came out. I said, Dyson, like, what's going on? Like, you need to do some dishes. He looks back at me and he's like, huh, you're not in a very good mood. I'm thinking to myself, it's kind of hard to be in a good mood when you got a smell of garbage and all these dirty dishes. So that night, I leave there, I close the door, and I am frustrated and I am disappointed. And it's just, I'm kind of judging on what's going on. And I have that feeling, right? That feeling of that disconnected feeling. And we are disconnected. And this is my son. I'm driving down there. I'm trying to be engaged with him. But then that disconnection drives feelings. My feeling was frustration. So in the chat, I just wanted you to think about a time maybe when you're disconnected from someone. Could be at work, could be at home. But what are some of those feelings that you get when you're disconnected, when you're not connected to someone and you start to feel that separation? Apathy, just not having that connection, not that feeling. Irritation, yeah. You get irritated, anxiety. Rob's got frustration. Joe has frustration. Yeah, there's a lot of frustration when we're disconnected, right? Because we're just annoyed, and that's just it. And when those emotions happen, when we are disconnected and annoyed, uh, we're not as productive, right? We don't have that open mind, and they're more negative feelings. And Barbara Fredrickson talked about how negative feelings can limit our creativity and our innovation and our learning, whereas positive emotions kind of expand and make us more creative, in our ideas. So thank you for that. So I go back to Louisville and I'm talking to my then girlfriend Diana, and I'm kind of like telling her about the story about these dishes and just the annoyance and all these words of frustration and just come on, man. Like, why isn't he just doing his dishes? I'm his dad. I'm trying to tell him. And then we're sitting on the couch. She leans over, she grabs my hands and says, do you think there could be something else going on? I'm like, maybe, but he could still do the dishes and take out the garbage, right? Like, okay, maybe there is. I don't know. But like, what does that matter? Should just be doing the dishes. So I go back. I get in the driveway. I'm trying to think of like, okay, could be something else going on. I open up the door. If you can believe it, those dishes are still there. I'm about to lose my mind. So I take a deep breath. I'm kind of thinking, okay, I think about curiosity. Like, do I want the dishes done, or can I be a little more curious? So I get there, and I really kind of had to, like, we talk about our emotions, right? Because our emotions, and when we come from that curiosity, we can ask better questions. And I'm just like, Dyson, are you doing okay? Like, what's going on, man? He's like, Dad, I'm just kind of hanging on right now. I'm stressed out at school. I just broke up with my girlfriend. I'm struggling and I could use your help. So I'm just like, Dyson, I didn't have a clue. Because at that point, it's like, oh, okay, something else is going on. And I want him to feel connected. I want him to feel seen, heard, and valued. I said, son, I can see you're doing your best. You know, what's in the way of doing your best right now? Like, how can I help? It's like, Dad, I can't stop drinking. the problems were never about the dishes. Life's problems are never about the dirty dishes. And if I don't go in there and thinking, if I want to see a change in him, the change is going to have to start with me. And that's really this whole essence of curiosity, and why this is, just changes everything. Because if we think, okay, so how does this tie into some of the work topics we talk about? How does this tie into safety? How does this tie into retention? Because safety and retention are some of the challenges I hear in a lot of organizations. We're going to talk today just about kind of how can this all kind of come together. So I want you to be present today. I want us to relax. We've got some great resources for you at the end for those that are watching the recording and those that are here live in the webinar. We're talking about the leader's edge and just kind of how this essence of curiosity can lead to deeper questions, which can lead to better connections and can get us those results. So after those conversations, and it was a really hard night because, I was the guy that had the written on the whiteboard, leave your emotions at the door. We have work to do. So I'm here to tell you all that I wasn't born with this, and it's taken me a lot to learn it. And I'm just excited to hear today to leave you a little more curious with some good stories and some good tools that you can use. And so think about it today, right? Maybe one person that you could become more connected with. So just another chat question here. So when you do feel connected, when you're just clicking, you're on a good team and things are rolling, what are some feelings that you have when you are connected? When you're connected with a family member, that you're just on the same page or having those deeper conversations, when that team is really talking to each other and they're going back and forth and yeah. So safe. Yeah, because it's funny, we talk about safety. Well, part of safety is just feeling safe, and that's kind of where it starts. That was and Joe, relaxation. Rob, peace. Yeah, because when we're at peace, think about it, it's that whole neuroscience of our brains are just more relaxed. We're going to be more creative. Blissful, I like that. Energized, yeah. um, Inspired, Justin. Supported, yeah. When you're connected, you're supported, and then you can talk more about what's really going on. So it's whether there's a safety issue that's maybe not being talked about, or maybe there's someone thinking about leaving. Well, when you feel supported, you can talk about that more. You will share it, right? Katrina sharing, Chrissy, you feel more confident because I'm connected, and I just know who I am, and I know I feel trusted. You feel good and in control, engaged, energizer. It's a precursor to trust. Absolutely. Yeah, Daniel, it's that precursor. So when you start getting feeling connected, yeah, that's what we're talking about. So, and you'll see, and this is the essence of those connected feelings is our intentions versus perceptions. I talk about so much, I have it written on my wall, our intentions versus perceptions. My intention was to help my son. That was not what he perceived. You know, like we have these great intentions. I believe that everyone on this call wake up this morning with good intentions, and there is a risk that someone might not get exactly what we're trying to communicate and what our intentions are. And unless we're more curious and we check in on that, we're going to miss a lot. I know because I missed a lot in my career going through that. So we talk about our intentions versus our others people's perceptions. And that's what I really want us to kind of think about and leave here with today. So our framework today, we've got three different gaps on how this disconnection happens. And we have the showing up gap, we have the expectation gap, and we have the action gap. We're going to go through all three, and this is going to be on your resources. And the first one is the showing up gap. So I had the showing up gap with Dyson, and and he wasn't the issue. But when I was there, I was using that judgment mode, right? I was in a judgment mode about the dishes. And when we really can kind of sit back on our heels and say, how are our intentions happening? And I had this problem at work too. At work, I have some truth tellers. Anybody have any truth tellers in their lives? They might be just at home, right? Like it can be just I have this old jacket that my mom bought me at J.C. Penney when I was 14 of the Minnesota Vikings, because that's where she was born. And I had Diana tell me that, you know what, that jacket isn't working for you anymore. And so that was a truth teller. So I think I'm going to frame it now, maybe in a frame or something. But it's one of those ones of those white leather sleeves, if you remember those or seen those flashbacks. So I have those truth tellers at work too. So it was, years ago and I was a lot younger and I'm running a manufacturing plant. And I gather the whole team about midday. We're having a good day, and everybody comes in the room, and I tell them corporate called in. We got some problems, and we've got some issues, and this is the task we need to get done from corporate about some cycle times. So, okay, great. So I go back to my office. I'm feeling pretty okay about my leadership, and I'm going to go back and work on some month end reports. And all of a sudden, our executive assistant walks in my office. Huh? You really pissed those guys off. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I just told him the why, the what, the how. Like, I've had a lot of leadership training. Like, I know how to kind of like deliver a message to a group. I've been doing this a while. She's like, I don't know, but I can see they're upset at you. And I can also see that you don't see it. So I thought you'd want to know. She walks out of my office. Well, I can't concentrate. So I go to the line. I talk to one of the supervisors. I say, how's it going? He's like, you really want to know? Like, we're having a good day. You walk in, do all your talking, throw everybody in different directions, and we're probably going to lose about 10% production because of it. Okay, so now I know I need to be more curious. And what was it? It was curiosity. We had some questions and we had some dialogue and we had overall communication. Those answers were in the room on how we could do that all along. But you won't hear them if you're the only one talking. I did all the talking. That's not connection. So we talk about a dialogue versus a monologue. So that dialogue, the definition of a dialogue is just two people talking about a problem to get a solution. And we didn't do that because the monologue is, just someone speaking about their concepts and their ideas. Like you probably run into some people giving you some monologues. So, and you'll know that feeling what I'm talking about. But that does happen, right? And so the dialogue gets that conversation going, and the curiosity. When you're entering in that moment, you have that curiosity, it connects to that whole next level. And so, so how do we do that? Like, how do we know how we're showing up? So I like to say the showing up gap is the space between how we think we show up versus how people see us. And a few of the questions that I like to ask when I don't know, I'll say like, "Hey, Laronda, like, how's this landing with you?" And just kind of see, what's going on. And then like when I'm talking to my mom sometimes, and her and I can get pretty disconnected. I'm like, maybe we're talking about family problem or just whatever. Kind of like, is this conversation helpful? Like in an authentic way, right? Because it's kind of like I don't want my mom upset with me, and sometimes we do leave upset with each other. And I don't want that disconnected feeling. I want to leave because I never know when that's the last time I'm going to see her, right? And we think about that. So I want to ask those questions so that she's not leaving feeling disconnected. And then the last one, I have to use the F word. And I say, how am I making you feel? The feel word, the feelings. And that was something that was uncomfortable for me I had to practice that, right? How am I making you feel? And that's not always what we talk about at work. So let's do a poll there. I kind of gave you a few questions that you could ask to help with the showing up gap. And I'm curious on these ones, which question would you feel most comfortable using? Because I'm curious to see what you would use. Are we connecting on this topic? Is this conversation helpful? And how am I making you feel? And I'm going from the person that told you to leave feelings at the door, and now I'm kind of bringing them out. So it is possible. Just need to have some fun and just try different things, right? And this is why I was excited getting the opportunity to speak to you all here, human organizational learning. Well, been I've been learning I'm still working on it.
That's what Michelangelo says. He says, I'm still learning. And we have someone who has shared some additional stuff for us to learn from in the chat, Trevor.
All
We
right.
have Brian who shared a link to a book that he just read that he feels like contributes to or adds to what we're discussing today. So thank you for that,
Yeah.
Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
And we just got another book link in the chat. So thank you for that. And thank you for everybody who's taken the poll as well. We appreciate that feedback from you all.
And so I appreciate those book shares because I'm writing a book right now on this topic, and it's so helpful. I mean, I find it just kind of getting different perspectives from others is helpful, and because we're learning in this together. Like honestly, when if I go through this today, I'll learn more. Is this conversation helpful? 70%. I'm not 10% on the feeling. Yeah, I get it. I guess it depends on context on the relationship as well. And then 20% are we connecting on this topic? So yeah. And you just remember that one, like if we could just stop in that moment and say, is this conversation helpful? I love it. All right. So the second gap, the second gap we're going to talk about today is the expectation gap. That's the space between what leaders expect versus teams understanding like what is expected. This is that expectation gap. If we want to go back even further, so at this point in my life, the phone I got came in a big black bag. I don't know why when cell phones first came out, they were clunkier and big. Obviously, you had to plug them into your car, uh, but they came in this big leather bag. And this is even before I had the BlackBerry, you know, because that could take off in Canada pretty good. So, it, have you ever had that boss? Ever had someone get so angry at you, like they get physically upset? Like I know for me, my giveaway is I got this vein that kind of pops out of the side of my head here. It's been kind of a giveaway. Sometimes there's a physical motion, but it's back in the day for me. And my boss, Tom, is standing in front of me and he is so angry. He is stomping his foot while he's talking to me. Okay, so context, it's a hot Friday, August afternoon in Ford Motor Company's 2.6 million square foot manufacturing plant. This guy's responsible for keeping this whole place going. I'm responsible for getting these seats in on time. And these seats are clunking slowly and running down this conveyor as he's like talking to me like I had longer hair then, but it was like blowing almost from the intensity coming from him. And I'm just thinking, man, this guy's going to eat me alive. Like, I just want to get out of here. I can't think of anything. So eventually that line was stopped. And eventually it got back up and going very painfully. You know what? And Tom and I let that moment slide. And when I collect all these stories and I thought, oh, I'm going to share on this webinar and with people, like, you know, when bad emotions come, you know, you can't think. I was freaked out. Like, what drives a good man with good intentions that I already had a pretty good relationship with to go on such a rant when I was already stressed out? And then I started thinking the expectation gap. Okay. So Tom, you know, went from having a good night to his plant being shut down. So where was my responsibilities is what I started thinking 30 years later is like, okay, you know, I didn't get it then, but like I had responsibilities on my expectations. Like where was my curiosity on, hey, should I be calling Tom now? You know, should I give him a heads up that I might be getting in trouble? You know, the expectation of communicating. I don't want to bother my boss about something about work during work. You know, like it was that whole ego drive, right? And what's really important is to remember that extreme events can equal extreme emotions. Those extreme events are the times when we have the least amount of time to respond. We just don't have it, right? Because we're stressed out, we're angry, we become more limited. And so that expectation gap, when we can keep connected, we don't get into that point of those heightened emotions where we can't respond anymore. So, you know, we struggle with this. We continue to struggle with this gap because this disconnection, you know, it causes those moments of frustration and confusion. And then all of a sudden we start muddling around in this gap between what leaders expect versus teams understanding what is expected. And when we can come with that attitude of curiosity, ask better questions, and create that dialogue, we start to be having that conversation between two people of what good looks like.
Hey,
And that's,
Trevor,
yeah.
while you're on that topic and
Mm,
before you go a little bit further, want to share a question from Mike Petrowski.
all right.
He said back to your son Dyson in that situation where you were upset about the smell and the cleanliness of his room. How do you balance leadership's responsibility to set and reinforce standards and expectations, kind of the way we think it should be,
Hmm.
with that curiosity that you spoke about?
Yeah, and that's what I continue to use the dishes as a metaphor, right? Like the dishes are a metaphor, but when I would we would get into a situation that maybe there's a pre-shift checklist, maybe there's a layered process audit that needs to happen, and then it doesn't get done, right? Like that's the expectation gap. Like, dude, you're supposed to do the audit. It didn't get done. Like, I don't want to talk about it. Like you signed off, you know what the standard work is, and but obviously the question's being asked because it still happens. How can that happen? Like, how can we be in a situation? Because I've had leaders say that where it's kind of like, well, they signed off, they should know, so we just need to write them up. Okay, how's that working for you? We talk about retention, we talk about feeling safe. So if it's at work and we're expected to do that audit, and my first reaction was like, okay, Trevor's got to be held accountable. He didn't do the audit, and that's his job. But what if we took a different approach, right? What if we just took that with curiosity and it's like, Miranda, I know this audit's important. Like, what's going on? Like, you didn't get the audit done. And I know that's important, and I know you got a lot going on, but let's talk about that. Help me understand. And one of my favorite questions to ask is like, if the audit did get done, and it's your responsibility, what would be different? What would need to be different? Because there's something going on why that audit didn't get done. And when we can find that out, we can find the truth. I had a I had a client. He walks by one of his maintenance managers, and he can't remember what he said to him, but it was kind of like a little bit threatening of like you better get that up and going, or it says, "Wow, you might feel like he's going to get fired." And he's like, "Good, motivate him." Like, hold on a minute, hold on a minute. Let's talk about when you feel like you're going to get written up and fired. What does that do to your creativity? What does that do to that? So I mean, I hope that helps, but that's what happens, right, at work. When there's that expectation gap, the expectation is there. And, a few of those questions I like to ask and that you can ask is like, what's going on? I know it sounds, there's nothing new, right? I'm just all doing is taking what we know and just applying it and creating it to be more mindful. That is like, what's going on is just a good question, because then it can be like, is it might go down a path you're just not expecting. Like, that you were supposed to do this first off check. It didn't happen. What's going on? The other one was like, if we're talking about how we see things different at work, and it's like, you can ask, what does good look like to you? What does good look like to you? I was reading a book from a author here from Louisville, and it was about Monica McCarthy, and it's called Lessons Through the Drive-Through. And she talks about running a Taco Bell, and cleaning the green onions is the name of the chapter. And like she couldn't understand this the person just wasn't cleaning the green onions, and like there's still dirt on them. Like you can't serve that to people. And then so one night she has to give her a ride home. She goes up to her apartment, opens up the door. The place is a disaster. It's like, oh, so clean to you is different than clean to me. Huh. So what does good look like to you? Because they could be different. And we get into that deeper conversation, we become connected on what does a good green onion cleaned look like? And the last one is just like, if something's not going on, it's like, and you have that conversation, how can I support? Because we got to have the conversation. And that's just a different way to get it going. So let's do a poll on that one. Those were the three questions that I really like when there is that gap on expectation. Which one do you think would be most helpful for you?
And
All
while everyone's
right.
getting that poll answered, Trevor, another comment was if you tell the people the why, it kind of helps to break down that barrier because they start to understand and maybe become a little bit more willing, if you will, whether they know or don't know how to do something or how to proceed, at least they understand the why,
Hmm.
and they may help you to move that initiative further. So,
Oh yeah.
they won't be intentionally not doing something. They'll be able to come a little bit closer to where you want them to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's it just feeds. It's such a good point, right? Because talking about the why helps them understand like the importance of what we're even talking about this. And then I would say yes to that. And how can you ask a couple more questions to see do they connect to that? Does it connect to their own personal why? Because they may say, okay, so that's your why.
Mhm.
But now we got to still be more curious. It's like, man, it's still more work to do all this because I got to keep asking a little bit more on the why. So good here. So what does good look like to you? Three and close to what is going on? How can I support? Pretty split. So yeah, so some great just different strategies. And I'm just excited because you are all here today and maybe this afternoon or tomorrow you'll ask one of these questions. And it's kind of like, oh, you know what? I don't have to feel so frustrated when that isn't getting done. I love it. All right. The last one, the last of the three, we call the action gap. Yes, this is the space between what people are doing and what you want them to do. What you want them to do versus what they're actually doing or not doing. So that's another disconnect, right? Like we know that we should be doing this, we're not. We got to understand that. So I was coaching a supervisor. This woman's on her way up. Her name's Jane. She's at the morning kickoff meeting at the beginning of the shift. She hears one of the teammates say, "Not going to be a good day." So her immediate reaction usually is, "Oh yeah, we're going to make it a good day. I'm going to make sure it's a good day." And like because what he's talking about was the target for the day was 5 pallets, and he was saying, "Well, we're probably only going to hit 3." So her normal response is kind of get on them and be that leader of just like motivate and keep going. But she took a different approach, right? And she's like, if you did hit 5 today, like what would be different? And well, we wouldn't run out of parts. It's okay. So what could you do? What could be different about not running out of parts? And she's like, well, if these buffers stayed full, right? Like, cause it's like we lose this time, we're never gonna hit 5 because the buffers go empty. Well, is there anything you can do like this morning to help prevent that? Or what do you think about that? Well, we are having a changeover later this morning. So I guess me and this other person could go and stock up the buffers. So it's a simple example, but it's a real one, right? And just that small shift that she makes just changes her connection with that teammate. Because what we're trying to do here is like, Trevor, how do we make sure people do this? Well, they got to understand like what's in their control. And the difference is that when we tell someone, and this is why I tell stories today, because I could just tell you this, I could send you this in an email. And I try to do a little bit of polling in some of our engagements because like when we kind of think through it ourselves of like, okay, so how would we hit 5? It's different through a conversation because now it's our idea, we're thinking, and now we own it, and now we're going to execute it, and now that action's going to happen. And it just takes some different instead of like, dude, you need to hit 5. Like I'm gonna be checking on you every hour. Okay, so how that's exhausting, right? Like, or if something's not getting done, it's like, okay, well, we're gonna follow up, we're gonna send an email, or we're gonna make a task list with all these different, dates and due dates. Oh, you know what? And then we're gonna have a meeting to talk about making sure that the actions happen. And then we'll do follow-ups to that meeting. Like it just gets exhausting. So if we can just be a little more curious, have these questions, because one of my favorite thoughts are, and this is what I use so many statements in my career, and there's some people I think that don't even want to talk to me at this point. But I recognized it. I got the self-awareness, and when you know better, you do better. And I want us to remember that statements, they can divide us. That's sad. But today we're not going to be sad because questions, they unite us, right? It's the questions that bring us together. It's a curiosity. Think about new people that you meet, right? Like if when you meet someone new and they're asking more questions about you, how much do you want to engage with them? I like to say, like, when we leave a conversation, do you feel more energy or less energy? Right? I want to be that person that I can leave you with more energy, and that's my goal here today. So let's talk one about safety glasses. I don't need to show that one. The safety glasses is one. You have those safety glasses on the top of your head. You ever see people walking around and they got them up here because they forgot to put them down here to protect their eyes. So you see someone walking around with safety glasses, could be a perfect example. Normal response might be to say, hey, this is a safety glass zone. That could be construction or whatever you're in. And you just want to say, hey, put your safety glasses on, man. Oh, what question could you ask to get someone to put their safety glasses on? Just an example. So I want you to think about that. Put that in the chat. Let's brainstorm that for a minute. I'm not wearing my safety glasses. They're up top. And I can't just tell you. What can I ask? And I'll give a little hint before some answers come out. But one of the tactics that we know that when we say the question why, like one could be like, why are you not wearing your glasses? That isn't always coming from curiosity. And when we ask why, it can feel threatening because usually why provides something that drives us more inside of like, why are you not wearing your glasses? So yeah, we can ask, anybody have any ideas on what you would ask for someone to find out, be a little more curious. So when you're coming from curiosity, see how your questions could change.
We do have a lot of feedback coming in the chat. It's a good
All
fodder
right.
for
Oh,
them.
thank you. So my chat I have up here and I wasn't moving it up. Thank you, Rhonda. That's why
No
you,
worries.
you need to be connected. And I got connected with Rhonda. Thank you. Uh,
Mhm.
do you like the safety glasses we provide? Yeah, that could be it. Great question. Thank you, Jessica. Are those fogging on you? Oh my gosh, like we talk about when we're having a problem discussion like this, it's like you and me, and then over here, that's the problem. So when we ask questions like, do you like the safety glasses we provide? You're not making it personal at this point. It's not like I'm trying to use my power over you. I'm not trying to be smarter. I'm just kind of asking, hey, are safety glasses required in this area? Um, Safety first before doing anything in the plant or lab. So we got to kind of just think about how could we ask that into a question. I wonder, could you tell me what I might be seeing or not seeing? Yeah, you could have some humor in it. Like that's okay. Have some humor in that, Ryan. Brian, are those foggy on you? I like that one. Um, and then do you realize your glasses are on your head? Yeah, again, if you throw some humor in it, depending on the person, and just makes it more comfortable, right? And and what are going on with the glasses on your forehead? It's funny. Is there any purpose of the safety glasses? Most eyes are the most precious things. Yeah, you just kind of, and again, it kind of depends on the relationship. How can we make those glasses better so you can use them? Again, like it's a little bit of humor in there. I like that. Help me understand, what's going on here. Like, how would you miss that? Uh, do you think anyone cares whether you do or not? Yeah, if you're not asking, then that's a problem too, because we do care about you. And then if we talk about that aspect and we're more connected on that personal level, because It's not just about not having the glasses on, it's about having that conversation. All right.
And Trevor, we're
Yeah.
going to show our audience here that we care about them. So I'm going to throw a couple of
All
questions at you
right.
from them
Excellent.
before we get a little bit too further down the line.
Perfect.
One question came from Mike Petrowski, and you can't just leave us hanging about the green onions. So after they had that conversation, did things get better?
Yeah, yeah, and it's a great. I definitely recommend her book. I should maybe we could send it in the chat later. But yeah, but it took Monica. So she ended up being like a COO of the brands eventually because of like just getting more into the gritty of of that. So it was, and I remember in the book she talked about like staying on second shift longer and cleaning with her. She cleaned with her because she didn't know, right? She didn't know what good cleaning was. Like if you haven't been grown up with that and you come to the restaurant, and but this is a different situation. Now we got health and safety. We're providing food for others. So in that situation, she really had to go, lock arms in arms, like let's clean this top together. Oh, okay. So that's what good looks like. So we can have the conversation, but that's a great follow-up question because sometimes it creates more. I'm a big advocate of curiosity and questions, but then sometimes we just got to do it. I do it with you. Like that closes the expectation gap. It's kind of like, okay, so now I've seen you do it. I've done it together. That's a beautiful question.
And then one last one, and I'll let you proceed. When you are doing a presentation such as today, how do you get people's attention when you have such a diversified audience?
How do I get people's attention? Well, I have to see what I'm doing today is what I'm trying to do. So biggest thing is I try to make it relative to everybody. Because if we're talking about these gaps, I'm thinking like I'm not talking today for me because I already know what I'm saying. I'm talking for you. So I'm really thinking of like how are you all feeling on this webinar today? You gave up an hour of your time. You signed up for this, and I'm grateful that you took that time. And so I'm really kind of think of like, well, so what would that connect with that? So here's what I thought. I thought the best way to connect this for you would be lots of great work stories. And then I started telling this story about my son. I'm going to tell you the end of that story in a minute. And I realized that people needed to kind of hear that story to really make it connect. And that makes us think about our family and our friends. And I promise you, when you get better at this, because you will, because you're here today and you're going to think about some of this, you're going to get better at home. You're going to get better at work. It just embodies you and you just become more curious. And that's really what I try to do is just to connect with you all, have some good stories and just have some fun. And I think if we can do that when we have these gaps with other people, because one thing that, there's so much great topics today, but relationships is the other one, right? When you have that someone that that cares about you and you care about them, that's when you can have those deeper conversations. Like when we talk about Amy, my executive assistant, we had a good relationship. So she knew she could come in the office and be my truth teller. So that's one of the aspects, right? We people have need to feel safe enough to be able to tell you the truth and develop those relationships. All right. Okay. So let's see, we got 15 minutes. We're gonna wrap up, but yeah. So this is really it. That if I can leave you with these three different gaps, leave you thinking a little bit more about this. When we really think about it, 2/3 of the workforce is disengaged, just not engaged. And so when we talk about our safety and our retention, we want to keep them engaged, and that's from Gallup's report. That stat, this is our competitive advantage to have better safety, to have better retention. When we can make it their idea and we can make them connect, that's when we're going to have that additional engagement. And we're engaged, we're going to be safer, we're going to have better results. And the challenge is just a matter of curiosity. How do we stay curious? Because how you show up impacts on how people feel. And how you make people feel determines the extent to which they can engage with you. And I know that you all can do that more today now. So I had some slides and I thought, well, I wanted to be more engaged with you all today. So I saved them to the end here. We'll do a little wrap up. And all right. So just like doing a recap. So this is my son Dyson. This is a detox center. The next day that I took him there that day, and it just kind of reminds me of that whole showing up gap. And just I like you guys to leave today. Just think of something of someone, sorry, someone that maybe has some dirty dishes. Maybe it's something at work that's just been annoying you, and you just maybe haven't been curious enough to find out, why is that repeated problem happening? They work for your company now. They may work for you. Could be a family member. It's kind of like what else could be going on beneath those dishes? So we had the how we think we show up versus how other people see us, the showing up gap. And then this is just a reminder that this is when I was much younger, and this is where I don't have it actually written on that board, but it was about that time I had like leave your emotions at the door. And what I should have said was, Trevor doesn't have the skill to unpack how you're feeling. So we're gonna just have as best a day that we can, and we're gonna try to shove that under the rug. So I really missed out, and I didn't know. So that's why I'm on this mission now to work with others on that. The dialogue versus monologue, just check in on those conversations. It's that mindfulness of like, are we having a two-way conversation? Is this helpful? Our second gap was the expectation gap, what we expect others to do versus what others believe is expected. And that whole thing goes back to these Crown Vics and Grand Marquis. If you remember these babies, that's what we were making. And that's kind of the memory of that story that helped me remember. Last one's the action gap. And that's really that space between what we want people, the actions we want people to take versus what they're actually doing or not doing. And in summary, like, our problem is disconnection, but our solution is connection. And we know how to get there. We get there through curiosity. And I spent a lot of time in the manufacturing space, and it's even higher stats in manufacturing where people are disengaged, which makes this whole topic of curiosity, like if everybody leaves here today 5% more curious, we're going to have a better day. And this is the last metaphor I want to leave you with is, in every situation we come into, there's something going on. There's a temperature in the room. And I look at the water, that beautiful bucket of water, that's curiosity. That gas tank, that's judgment. So however you're showing up, to that conversation, how you're making people feel, how you engage them. And the last quick story I'll tell, there's this Evan is this engineering manager. And I'm coaching him, and he's a new manager. He's got these engineers. He calls me and he says, "Hey, one of my top engineers, he's starting fires left and right. And these are with people, right? Emotions, problems." He says, "I'm going in. I'm going to tell him tomorrow he needs to do it this way. He's not to say this. And if he doesn't, I'm going to start a PIP." I'm like, whoa, oh, a PIP. That's a performance improvement plan. I had to refresh myself on that. So I looked it up online, and it said it's good if you're thinking about firing someone. Okay. Well, I call them parting in positions. Like, you're on your way out, dude. Like, we talked today about the leader's edge of having deeper conversations for that performance. So Evan and I talked a little bit about like just how he was feeling, right? And what was the intention? Like, like we said earlier, how do you connect with people? How did he want to make that engineer feel? So we slowed down a little bit because everyone was so fired up. And we did talk a little bit more about curiosity. He did that 24-hour waited to talk to him the next day. And he took a different approach. And he used that question of just like, what's going on? And the engineer knew, right? And because he's like, man, like, I'm frustrated because I try to help, and then people are just hard to work with. And then I leave there upset and I regret what I say. So like the person already knew there's a performance issue. And it's like, well, so what do you need? Like, what does good look like? And he's like, well, good looks like I can go down, have a conversation with someone on the floor, help them understand, and not leave them upset at me. It's like, well, how can I support? Well, maybe some training. I need some skills that I don't have because I don't want to continue this. So he went from doing a performance improvement plan where someone might have gotten fired to like solving the problem and helping this person become a better person. So I just want you to think when you go in these situations, are you bringing more gas or more water? Because I tell you, we all need a lot more water on these fires because this is where it's like, take a deep breath because it doesn't have to be that stressful, right? We can contain these fires if we all just ask a few more questions, just a little more curious. All right. Well, we're coming to an end here. I'm gonna just put this up. We'll take a couple more questions. I got some more questions. This is just some feedback. I would be so grateful, and so would our community here for any type of feedback. If you scan that code, what's going to happen is I am going to ask for a little bit of feedback, and then at the end you're going to get your resources. So you're going to get a hard copy of this sheet here, which is going to have the 3 different gaps with all the questions that we talked about today. And then I got another download, and you just go in there, and after you fill it out, you click download, uh, and then basically you'll get another my 10 more of my favorite questions because I got too many great questions because I've been just trying to get this, and I tell you some of these questions come through the chats here from you all. Like we learn together. And I think that's kind of that whole concept of just keep that humility. Links there to the podcast. There's one up episode 86, which we talked about more powerful questions for accountability. And then I got a newsletter that comes out once a month, which just try to highlight a book. And I'm going to be checking some of these books that you guys shared out today. Um, I'll put that code back up, and we'll do any more questions here before I tell my last quick story, Loranda.
Sure thing, Trevor, and thank you so much. And again, appreciate all the great feedback that's in the chat. A lot of it has to do with you, though. We have people who have talked about how they appreciate the time that you shared and the information that you shared here with us today.
Thank you.
And 2 questions specifically, again, back to you. What do you think it is, or what has contributed to your success and you being where you are today? And that could potentially be one that you take offline. That was Ahmed's question, and he did ask to connect via chat. So I know once you scan that QR code, we have
Mhm.
your information. So if you want that to be a deeper conversation with
Yeah,
him, in
absolutely.
light of the time that we have, please, handle it however you'd like.
Yeah.
And then question, do you find that the cultural factors impact your approach? And before you forget, we also have one more poll, so let us know if
All
you want
right.
to do that.
All right. Well, I had a recent client that was a CFO going to president of a manufacturing plant, and we ended up getting that executive coaching job, which was great. But the reason I got it was like because I was pretty honest with him, right? And the fact of I told him about the story with my son Dyson. I got divorced in 2016. I moved countries, Canada, US, and I quit my job and started my own business. There was a lot that went on, but I started reading more. It was Travis Bradberry's Emotional Intelligence 2.0. And I really had to kind of do some soul searching because I was starting to act at work like my bosses were, which was when someone wasn't performing, they put more pressure on me when I wasn't, and I put more pressure on other people. And it was just a bad cascade. And I felt that when there's performance issues, that's when we need to lean in. That's when we need to lean in and be there and understand and be curious. And I was starting to become someone that I wasn't. And that isn't really like I'm a fun guy, but I was upsetting people and I was trying to maybe impress bosses, get a promotion. At home, I was trying to be a husband that my ex-wife wanted me to be. That wasn't me. And it was really, really hard. And I had to make a lot of changes. And it was gradual, right? It was years of just kind of increasing self-awareness. And I'm a better person today because of it. And I'm still learning. Oh, that's a great question. And then the one on the culture, that was
Mhm.
what was the question on the culture?
Sure, I'll get that for you.
Okay. Okay. And actually, oops, I'll just show this quickly. This is a picture. So a past client was in Puerto Rico on vacation and he took the picture and sent it to me. Stay curious. He says, I think of that when I think of you. It's kind of like, oh man. I think I need a t-shirt like that. So that's one of one of my next tasks.
Hey, I want one of those t-shirts once you get it going. So that question about culture was, do you find that cultural factors impact your approach? I think that's an interesting question, especially considering what you just shared about moving to a whole nother country after you had this personal issue. And by the way, we appreciate you being open and vulnerable and sharing that with us. So, do you find that cultural factors impact your approach?
Yeah, you gotta test your environment. Like sometimes, like I'm sharing here today. I don't know if everybody really wanted to hear all that from me, but the question got asked. And sometimes I realize that based on that culture where we're at, sometimes I overshare, right? And I'm going to ask a question a little bit too deep. So I think that's where the culture really kind of comes in, and whether that's a one-on-one relationship with a neighbor or whether that's your organization. You know, you find someone that is closer to kind of where you are at, and that's what happened to me. I started to realize other people, especially some other males that were struggling, that didn't want to do that. I started talking more about feelings and just kind of like how am I making other people feel. And there was a point where I was like a partnered in this manufacturing plant. I was like bad cop and he was good cop. It's like, I don't want to be bad cop. Like, I don't want to be the person just to kind of be that. So I think that culture just kind of gauge at where we're at. Um, Last thing I'll leave you with is that, so this is my son, just a little while ago. John Gordon was on the podcast. He wrote The Energy Bus and The One Truth. We were sending him this picture because we read it and talked about it. But Dyson, right now on February 26th of 2024, he's 3 years sober. 3 years sober. He doesn't smoke. He doesn't drink. He just graduated from a college in Canada about counseling for drug rehabilitation. And he just got accepted to a university to kind of take that to another level. I'm going to see him this weekend. We have conversations. He called me this morning. Um, and I just want y'all to remember, it's like, I don't even know if he's here if I don't make a change. So it's important for us to make changes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Trevor. We appreciate you so much again for being here, for sharing your stories, for being authentic, for being vulnerable. We got lots of great feedback in the chat. I do want to remind everyone, we only have about a minute left here, but there were some links for some books in the chat. So if you all wanted to go and grab those really quick, please make sure you do that in about the 60 seconds we have left. So scroll quick. There was also something else that someone shared earlier in the chat. It was the some information, the William Fisher test. And it was about asking 3 questions. Do they know the standard or the rule? Does the standard or rule make sense? And is the rule or standard consistently reinforced? And they provided some information about that. So again, scroll up really quick, go grab that. We want to remind you all that we at the Community of Human and Organizational Learning, and for those of you who don't know me, my name is LaRonda Julian, and I am the Director of Engagement for the community. We do these webinars every month. They're all free to you as a benefit of being a community member. So please make sure that you get on the distribution so that you can see when that's coming out, along with the great newsletter that Jessica does for us every month. Definitely want to say thank you to Jessica for her help. She's always
Yes.
behind the scenes,
Thank you.
making sure that things work out well for us. These podcasts, or not podcasts, Trevor, you got me going there. These webinars are recorded, so you will be able to go back and watch. So if you joined late or missed anything, or you just want to rehear anything, you'll be able to have that available to you here shortly. And Shannon, we need to flip that, she said, the concept of oversharing, because those communication gaps can help us to be more connected and
Mhm.
curious. So another hats off to you for being that person. Also, we have a YouTube channel, so you can go there and see some of our
Great
past
channel.
recordings as well. So Thank you, thank you, thank you, Trevor. We greatly appreciate you. We greatly appreciate everyone who joined us here today, and we look forward to seeing you again next month. If you have any questions about the community, send me an email, guys. hello@colearning.org. Have a great day.
Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you, everyone.